Gwan, are you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Sometimes when you take the side of your partner, it comes with the consequences of maybe potentially leaving your family behind. Where
Mm-hmm.
if you can't resolve the issue, right, where you have to, will you guys ever like, if we have to be on the other side, will you ever be in a relationship where you are you are being left like your partner's leaving their family behind because they want to be with you so badly and they can't see eye to eye with their family? Will you ever like put yourself in a place like that for love? Because we talked about it, like if our parents or our people we love, if their input and feedback is so important, right? What about we are on the other side of it? Would you be willing to live with that?
Yeah, for me, I feel like that would be an absolute kind of like extreme scenario because I put so much emphasis on family and then, having a good family relationship. You have a good family relationship. I have a good family relationship. Now our families come together and now we have a bigger family. Like I put so much emphasis on family that feels like that would be such an absolute like extreme scenario. Because even if like my wife's family had like an issue with me, I would be the type of person that would try to figure it out and try to address it directly. Like I'm not even through my wife. Like I would, if it was her mom or her pops had a, I would try to talk to them directly. Um, because I see them as family now, as my
Yeah.
family. But so yeah, so I don't think I don't know. I feel like that'd be a really, really extreme scenario. But this is again, this is a if, this is a really, really big if, but if that ever happened where there was something that we could not get through, like I could, like as in me and her family, I would expect her to choose me, because that was the vows that we ultimately took.
Mm, yeah. And what about
Yeah,
you, Glenn?
I feel like it's a very difficult and unfortunate situation, but if it comes down to that, I mean, my other question would be: is there ever really a full mutual consensus between both families, right?
Mm,
Like, I'm pretty sure the other half is probably just like, I'm not too big fan of her, but you know what, it is what it is, or I'm not a big fan of him, but you know what, it is what it is. And I think it all really comes down to whether or not there are some legit, like, flagrant fouls committed by either person, to where it's just like deliberate, like, you know what, we're not for it. Because I feel like that support system is more than just the wedding day. It's also when you have kids, other things get involved.
mm-hmm.
It's like you need that family to help out a lot of the times. And it will be good to know whether it's one half or the other or both. I always kind of feel like there's always a little one family that's usually a little bit more involved than the other, or one family that's usually more in favor of the engagement or the union than the other for some reason. I've never seen like a situation where both families were just like, we're all for it. You know what I mean? But again, that's from what I've seen, which is a very narrow point of view.
Mm,
But at that same time, I feel like it was not ideal to have that separation. But if there's really that much angst against the person or disdain, then there has to be something there, right? That
mm,
maybe we're not seeing. But at the end of the day, to Dee's point, you make that decision to move forward, then just be ready and prepared for what may come with it if you don't have the support of your family. And honestly, if you don't have the support of your family, then it really puts a hinder on things. Anything can happen. You could lose your home, you could lose your job, and a lot of times you end up falling back to family for support.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it would suck to have to cut family off for that case, but that is the reality, which is the case for some. Really, just having something to ground you all, or a nice foundation, I think, is essential.
yeah. And the reason why I even asked that is because I am aware of a situation on my side that, there was some disagreement between, you know, a couple, and where the male had to make a decision where he is taking himself uh, and takes some time away from his family. from
Mm.
from his siblings and his parents, right? Because of their relationship with his new spouse, right? So that's one of the reason I asked that question, because for me, before I let the person that I'm with to like fully remove himself from their family, because like to your point, family is such a it's so critical to who I am and to like as to the people around me, where like it would just be tough to kind of see life without them. I would like remove myself where like you can still have your family because that is your family. I would not be the reason why you don't have your family around or you're not talking to your family. I would distance myself where, if there's any family gathering or whatnot, I'll remove myself where I'm not part of it. Especially when kids start getting in the picture. To
Mhm.
your point, Glenn, it complicates the whole thing. And you don't want to rub your partner of that just that interaction with their parents and their siblings, their loved ones, because you and the family can't get it to work, can't get together. um I would definitely, yeah, to your point, because I think for me, I would definitely try my best personally to try to work through that issue by myself and not have to go through my partner to resolve the issue for me. But it is the reality though, because I mean, people, um I've been sometimes I love reading comments on social media, but people like be cutting their family off, man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
It's
dumb.
yeah.
crazy how
It
like
just seems like
how
a crazy
prominent
concept, but
it
yeah.
is in our community, in our society today, where people are willing to just walk away from the family because of a disagreement. So yeah, I was just curious what you guys think about that. If how you will feel if you were on the other side of that versus us making that decision.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would definitely suck, but it's if that's the case, it's like, what can you really do? I'm aware of one relationship that I know of where, there is some separation between the person's partner and their family, because of a disagreement. And
Mm.
it got to the point where, that person just does not visit the family anymore. So luckily there's two families in the equation. There's like, yours and the other person's, but sometimes it's what can you really do in that
Yeah.
case?
I think those situations are, always going to be very difficult to navigate. But, you know, in what Francis was talking about, I think it's important to dissect the fact that you talked about two types of dissociations from family. You first exemplified one where the guy, he basically dissociated himself from his family, but then you gave another example of being, having an issue with your significant other's family, and how you still are respectful of the significant other's relationship, and not putting pressure on them to dissolve their relationship from their family. But the thing about that though is, and I think this is my opinion, but I think even if you try to be understanding and say, hey, you can still spend time with your family, you could go and do whatever with your family, do trips, whatever, it's still going to be in the back of their mind that you exist.
Yeah.
And therefore, there will still always be that underlying pressure of being associated with you. So yes, in a sense, you may be trying to save face and saying, hey, you can still continue to interact with your family. I know they don't mess with me, but they're your family. But there's going to be times where you're going to need to be in their presence.
Hmm.
There's going to be times where maybe you have kids and your kids will need to be in their presence with you know and all of that lack of cohesion and coordination, it's going to be felt. And I feel like the children will ultimately absorb that energy, you know what I mean? So long way of saying that, having discourse within a family, I think is always going to be difficult to navigate, but I think it's important to always try to find a middle ground, right? In order to try to have like overall family success. um One thing that I actually wanted to kind of talk about and go back is that we were talking about, like kind of the rules between casual relationships and, those people that you want to be a little bit more serious with, right? But we also mentioned that ultimately that casual relationship has the potential to become something very serious, right? So why even have rules that are separate depending on your intent? you should just approach them all the same way, right?
Nah, because some relationships, some people you hook up with ain't about it. You know what I mean? It's just like I know I came into this relationship for this reason. I mean, kudos for even trying to make it a relationship to get what you want at the end of the day, which may not be your person, but something that they do or can provide. Kudos for even taking that step. But I can't think there was a time where people would just be upfront, like they were just afraid to be upfront, like, hey, I just want you because I think you're attractive and I want to have sex. But then they went the long way around and said, you know what, all right, let's be boyfriend and girlfriend just so I can have sex. And then when you stop doing that, then might have to split and make it, and then go from there. And I do believe in those chance encounters, like you mentioned, where it can be okay. It started off as something, maybe not without a commitment, but we decided to feel it through. Like a lot of people tend to feel the relationships through, and but I feel like it just gets muddy. Like if you don't have that intent in mind and you try to pass it off as something else or pretend, or maybe you want your family to think that you're serious about this person, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to smash, you know what I mean? Because you're afraid of what people might think. I think it all comes down to perceptions. And when you play that game, you always end up getting burned, right? So our thing is like, just be 100. Like you don't have to fake the funk of being in a relationship if you're just trying to get some box. If that person wants someone to be in a relationship with them for that, you can't knock them for that. But don't force yourself into it thinking that I'm just trying to get my ulterior motive. It just gets messy from there. And I mean, I do believe, people can usually once you get, I do believe in passing of energies when it comes to having sex and stuff like that. I do. Like, there's no way you can do and not feel something for the person. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's just like, don't let your hormones rule over you. You know what I mean? Like, have some control over that to avoid, somebody coming to your front yard at 2:00 in the morning calling your whole family bitches. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like, yeah, I mean, you don't have different rules for them technically, You just the rules that you have is really just based on your intent. So like, because if we're just hooking up, we're just hooking up. And at least from my personal experience, I'm not gonna, bring you to my family, for example. And depending on who you are, I might not even bring you around my friends. So our relationship
Sneaky link.
like,
yes,
you know her? I know her too.
our relationship might just be very, just be private. It could be a private relationship or interaction, where we don't even need to so our world doesn't even collide to that level where I need to have any rules, because it's just what it is, right? It is what it is. And we don't need to complicate our entire interaction with each other with all those expectation and stuff like that. But when the relationship then proceeds to whatever is progressing to be, then that's when the rules that you do have, which is the same rule, and that's when that rule comes into play. So for me, I don't think you have two different rules. Your expectation is really what drives when that rule comes into play, if that makes sense.
But in a way you do, because you just kind of mentioned it, like you're not going to bring them around friends. You're not going to, so those are rules.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, but sometimes you just
only
like,
come through the
you
back
might,
door.
I mean, sometimes even the girls that do graduate to the level where you do bring them around
Oh
friends.
God, graduation.
Yeah, you do like move to the next phase. I mean, every interaction starts. I think every interaction starts at a private level. Then it proceeds to where they meet your friends, unless if you meet them with those people, right? If you met online, go on a date with that person, it's a one-on-one interaction. You get to know them one-on-one. Then eventually it progresses where you invite them to a group gathering, right? Then if it proceeds to the next level, then they meet your family. So for me, yeah, so I don't know, I feel like everything starts at that basic level.
Yeah, but so okay, so everything may start at that basic level, but okay, here's my thing. I think that having that level of like this, like having rules based on your intent can still I feel like it doesn't work. And the reason why is because even though you intend to be casual, life can make it serious.
Right. Then the rule
Things-
comes into play when it gets serious.
but then you get what I'm saying? Like, God forbid there's a baby involved or something like that. The circumstances change.
Or then,
You're
it
not,
is what
It's even
it is what
worse.
it is at that point. You
you
just
know what I'm saying?
But you know the
So-
funny thing about rules though, they only apply if both people play by them, right?
What's good? It's your homie G with the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast, extending a major thank you